The morning mist enveloped the streets of Manila like a grey mantle, while Manny Pacquiao adjusted the hood of his simple sweatshirt over his head. In that early 2024, the legendary boxer had decided to spend a few days incognito in his homeland, away from the spotlights and cameras that followed him everywhere. His tired but still determined eyes watched the city slowly awaken as he walked toward the small café where he used to have breakfast when he was young. The establishment, known as Café Sampaguita, maintained the same humble charm from decades past. The peeling walls and worn wooden tables told stories of countless customers who had passed through. Manny chose a discreet corner near the foggy window, where he could observe the street movement without being noticed. The waitress, a gray-haired lady, approached with a gentle smile, showing no sign of recognition. While waiting for his order, Manny noticed the entrance of an impeccably dressed man. The perfectly cut Italian suit, the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, and the polished leather shoes revealed his wealth. It was Vincent Chen, one of the most powerful real estate tycoons in Southeast Asia, known as much for his billionaire fortune as for his boundless arrogance. The businessman looked around with evident disdain, as if the humble environment were an offense to his presence. Chen chose precisely the table next to Manny, huffing impatiently while cleaning the chair with his silk handkerchief before sitting. The same waitress approached to serve him, but was met with an expression of disdain. The billionaire examined the simple menu with obvious disgust, making deprecating comments about the establishment's quality and questioning how they still managed to keep their doors open. Manny watched the scene in silence, his fists involuntarily clenching under the table. He knew men like Vincent Chen well, individuals who had forgotten their own humble origins and now treated the less fortunate as inferior beings. The boxer took a deep breath, remembering his mother's teachings about humility and compassion, values he had carried since the days of extreme poverty in General Santos City. What Manny didn't know was that this seemingly casual encounter would change not only his day, but would trigger a series of events that would reveal the true character of both men. Fate had placed the world champion and the arrogant billionaire side by side in that modest café, setting the stage for a lesson that Vincent Chen would never forget. The tension in the air became palpable as Vincent Chen continued his complaints. The billionaire called the waitress's attention with a finger snap, a gesture that made Manny's blood boil silently. The lady approached again, maintaining her professional composure despite the rude treatment she received. Chen demanded that she clean the table again, claiming it was too sticky for his refined taste. While the employee struggled to meet the absurd demands, her trembling hands accidentally spilled a few drops of water on Chen's suit sleeve. The magnate's face contorted in fury, and he stood up abruptly, shouting harsh words that echoed throughout the café. The few customers present turned to watch the embarrassing scene, while the poor woman tried to apologize, tears beginning to form in her eyes. It was at this moment that Manny decided to intervene. He stood up calmly and approached Chen's table, still with the hood partially covering his face. With a serene but firm voice, he suggested that the businessman treat the lady with more respect, reminding him that accidents happen and that everyone deserves dignity, regardless of their social position. Chen turned to face the intruder, his eyes narrowing with contempt upon noticing Manny's simple clothes. The billionaire let out a sarcastic laugh, evaluating Manny from top to bottom with evident disdain. He assumed he was dealing with just another poor customer of the establishment, someone who had no right to meddle in his affairs. Chen began to taunt Manny, questioning his education, his social position, and even his personal hygiene, based solely on his humble appearance. The cutting words flowed like venom, each one loaded with prejudice and arrogance. Manny remained surprisingly calm in the face of the insults. Years of discipline in the ring had taught him to control his emotions, even in the most provocative situations. He simply stood there, watching Chen with a look that mixed pity and determination. The boxer knew well the weight of words and knew that true strength resided in the ability to keep them under control, even when every fiber of his being cried out for justice. The scene attracted more and more attention. Some customers discreetly grabbed their cell phones, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Chen, intoxicated by his own arrogance, continued his torrent of insults, completely oblivious to the fact that he was about to commit the biggest mistake of his life. The man he was trying to humiliate was not a simple cafe patron, but a living legend who had conquered the world with his fists and, more importantly, with his unshakable character. Vincent Chen stepped forward, invading Manny's personal space with an intimidating posture. The billionaire, in his blind arrogance, decided to elevate the level of his provocations. He began to question the masculinity of that hooded stranger, suggesting that he had probably never fought for anything in his life, that he was just another coward who hid behind beautiful words about respect and dignity. The veins in Chen's neck bulged as he spat his venomous words. The businessman then did something that surprised everyone. He challenged Manny to a friendly fight, right there, in the small space between the cafe tables. Chen boasted about his private martial arts lessons with the best instructors money could buy, claiming he could easily defeat that indigent in a matter of seconds. He even offered a considerable amount of money if Manny could last just 1 minute with him. The proposal caused a murmur among those present. The waitress, still shaken by the previous treatment, tried to intervene, begging both to calm down. But Chen silenced her with an abrupt gesture, his eyes fixed on Manny, waiting for an answer. The boxer remained silent for long seconds, his breathing controlled, while memories of his early days on the streets of General Santos City came back to his mind. Manny finally spoke, his voice low but loaded with unwavering confidence. He accepted the challenge, but with one condition. If he won, Chen should apologize to the waitress and leave a generous tip for all the establishment's employees. The billionaire laughed out loud, finding the proposal ridiculous, but immediately agreed, convinced of his certain victory. After all, how much damage could a seemingly fragile man wearing second-hand clothes cause? The cafe customers quickly moved the tables away, creating a small space in the center of the establishment. The cafe owner, an elderly gentleman who had recognized Manny from the moment he entered, tried to dissuade both, but was ignored. Chen began to remove his expensive jacket, folding it carefully over a chair, while Manny simply adjusted his sweatshirt, keeping the hood partially over his head. The tension in the environment was palpable. Some customers discreetly recorded the scene with their cell phones, sensing they were about to witness something historic. Chen assumed a fighting stance that he had clearly learned in his expensive private lessons, moving with the exaggerated confidence of someone who had never faced a real opponent. Manny, in turn, remained relaxed, his feet firmly planted on the ground, his hands loose at his sides, as if he were just waiting for the bus on any given morning. The first move came from Chen, who advanced with a direct punch, convinced he would catch his opponent off guard. To his complete surprise, Manny dodged with disconcerting ease, his body moving with the fluidity of running water. The billionaire stumbled forward, unbalanced by his own momentum, while murmurs of astonishment began to arise among the spectators. Chen turned quickly, his face now red with frustration and embarrassment. He launched a series of blows, each more desperate than the last, but Manny dodged them all with minimal, almost lazy movements. It was like watching a master dancer avoiding invisible obstacles, each movement calculated with surgical precision. The boxer had not yet raised his hands to attack, only defending himself with supernatural calm. Chen's frustration grew with each passing second. His expensive martial arts techniques seemed useless against this mysterious man. In a moment of blind rage, the billionaire attempted a high kick, a movement he had practiced hundreds of times with his instructors. Manny simply stepped back, and Chen completely lost his balance, falling awkwardly to the ground, his expensive suit now wrinkled and dirty. That's when it happened. As Chen struggled to get up, Manny's hood slipped back, revealing his face. A sepulchral silence took over the cafe. The The cell phones recording the scene trembled in their owner's hands. The waitress let out an audible gasp. There, before everyone, was Manny Pacquiao, 8-time world boxing champion, the pride of the Philippines, the man who had knocked out some of the best fighters on the planet. Vincent Chen's face lost all color. His eyes widened in shock and horror as the realization of what had just happened hit him like a punch to the stomach. He had tried to humiliate and then fight one of the greatest boxers of all time. The billionaire's legs trembled, and he remained kneeling on the ground, unable to move, while excited whispers filled the environment. Manny extended his hand to help Chen get up, his face showing not an expression of triumph, but genuine compassion. The boxer had chosen not to use even a fraction of his true ability, not out of fear, but out of mercy. In all those moments, he could have ended the fight with a single blow, but chose to give a different lesson, a lesson about humility, respect, and the true nature of strength. Chen's hands trembled uncontrollably as he accepted Manny's help to stand up. The billionaire, moments before so arrogant and confident, now looked like a frightened child before his idol. His mouth opened and closed without making a sound, like a fish out of water, while trying to process the magnitude of his mistake. Those present in the café began to applaud spontaneously, recognizing not only Manny's identity but also his demonstration of restraint and class. The news spread like wildfire. Within minutes, people began to crowd outside the café, their faces pressed against the windows, trying to glimpse the legendary boxer. On social media, videos of the confrontation were already going viral, with captions like, "Arrogant billionaire tries to humiliate Manny Pacquiao and gets what he deserves," and "Pac-Man teaches humility lesson in Manila Café." Vincent Chen's name quickly became trending, but not in the way he would have liked. The waitress, still emotional about the turn of events, approached Manny timidly. The boxer hugged her gently, whispering words of encouragement in her ear. He then turned to Chen, who remained paralyzed, and with a firm but gentle voice, reminded him of his part in the agreement. The billionaire, with his face burning with shame, mumbled an almost inaudible apology to the lady, his words stuttering and sincere this time. Chen, with trembling hands, took out his wallet and began counting high-value bills. He not only fulfilled his promise to leave a generous tip, but went beyond, giving the equivalent of several months' salary to each employee present. It was clear that money, previously used as a symbol of his superiority, now served as a desperate attempt at redemption. The employees accepted gratefully, but their looks of admiration were directed at Manny, not the billionaire. The transformation in Chen was visible. The man who entered the café exuding arrogance now seemed smaller, more human. His curved shoulders and lowered gaze contrasted drastically with his previous posture. Some of those present couldn't hide their smiles, satisfied to see the bully receive his dose of humility. Others filmed every moment, ensuring that this lesson would be eternalized on the internet. Manny, demonstrating the greatness of character that made him loved worldwide, approached Chen once more. He placed his hand on the billionaire's shoulder and began to speak about the importance of remembering our origins, of treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their social position. His words, simple but profound, seemed to finally penetrate the armor of arrogance that Chen had built over the years. In the hours following the incident, Vincent Chen's life began to crumble publicly. Videos of the confrontation had gone viral globally, with millions of views and shares. Body language experts analyzed every moment of his failed attempt to intimidate Manny, while sports commentators retold the story with evident pleasure. The contrast between Chen's initial arrogance and his subsequent humiliation became material for countless memes and jokes. In the corporate world, the consequences were immediate and severe. Shares of Chen's companies began to plummet as investors watched the videos. Important business partners began to distance themselves, not wanting to be associated with a negative image that now surrounded the billionaire. His phones rang incessantly with calls from public relations, lawyers, and furious shareholders, all demanding explanations and damage control. Meanwhile, Manny had quietly returned to his home, avoiding the press that now surrounded the small café. On his social media, he published a simple but powerful message about the importance of humility and mutual respect, without directly mentioning the incident. The post received millions of likes and comments, with people from around the world sharing their own stories about the importance of treating everyone with dignity. Chen, isolated in his mansion, watched in horror as his reputation, built over decades, crumbled in a matter of hours. Investigative reports began to emerge, revealing other cases of his abusive behavior toward employees and people considered inferior. Former employees came forward with similar stories of humiliation and disrespect, creating an avalanche of bad publicity that seemed to have no end. The Filipino community, known for its unity and national pride, rallied in support of Manny. Boycott campaigns against Chen's businesses began to organize organically, with people sharing lists of his companies and encouraging others to take their business elsewhere. Local and international celebrities began to speak out, praising the restraint and class demonstrated by Pacquiao throughout the incident. At Café Sampaguita, life had changed dramatically. The humble establishment had become an impromptu tourist spot, with boxing fans and curious people lining up to visit the place where the legend had taught an unforgettable lesson. The waitress who had been mistreated by Chen became a minor local celebrity, giving interviews about how Manny defended her and how that day changed her life. The café owner, prudently, placed a discreet plaque marking the table where everything happened. 3 months after the fateful encounter, Vincent Chen did something that surprised everyone. He appeared publicly at a press conference, but he was not the same arrogant man from before. Dressed simply, without the usual adornments of wealth, he began to speak with a genuine humility that many doubted he possessed. Chen admitted his mistakes, not just from that day at the café, but from years of arrogant and disrespectful behavior. The billionaire revealed that he had spent the last few weeks deeply reflecting on his life and values. He told how he had grown up in a poor family in Davao City, how he had struggled to build his empire, and how, at some point along the way, he had lost touch with his roots and his humanity. The tears in his eyes seemed genuine as he spoke about the shame he felt upon realizing the monster he had become. Chen announced significant changes in his companies. He would implement new employee welfare programs, increase minimum wages in all his operations, and create a foundation dedicated to helping small businesses and low-income workers. More surprisingly, he revealed that he had personally sought out each person he had mistreated over the years to apologize and offer compensation. The centerpiece of his redemption came when Chen announced a partnership with the Manny Pacquiao Foundation to build community centers in underprivileged areas of the Philippines. He committed a significant portion of his fortune to the project, stating it was the least he could do after the lesson he had received. Manny, present at the press conference, publicly embraced Chen, demonstrating that forgiveness and second chances were fundamental values in his life. The Filipino public, initially skeptical, gradually began to accept Chen's transformation. His actions spoke louder than words, and the changes in his companies were real and measurable. Employees reported a completely different work environment, more respectful and humane. The story began to shift from a narrative of humiliation to one of redemption and personal growth. Manny, in a later interview, reflected on the incident with his characteristic wisdom. He explained that he never intended to humiliate Chen, but simply couldn't stand by while someone was being mistreated. He spoke about how we all carry the potential for both arrogance and humility, and how sometimes we need a moment of clarity to choose the right path. His words resonated deeply, transforming the incident into a modern parable about character and redemption. A year after the encounter at Café Sampaguita, the story of Manny and Chen had become a modern legend in the Philippines and beyond. The small café had transformed into a symbol of how simple moments can carry profound life lessons. A bronze plaque now marked the location of the incident, with an inscription that read, "In this place, humility triumphed over arrogance, and a lesson in respect was taught without a single punch being thrown." Vincent Chen had fulfilled all his promises and more. His foundation had helped thousands of families, and his personal transformation inspired other wealthy businessmen to re-examine their own values and behaviors. He frequently visited Café Sampaguita, no longer as the arrogant billionaire, but as a regular customer who conversed respectfully with everyone. The waitress he had mistreated now greeted him with a genuine smile, a symbol of the power of forgiveness. Manny continued his life with the same humility as always, but the incident added another layer to his already legendary reputation. In the Philippines and around the world, the story was told and retold, not as a tale of violence or retaliation, but as an example of how true strength manifests through restraint and compassion. Schools began using the incident as a case study on ethics and moral values. The ripple impact of the event continued to spread. Companies began implementing training on respect and dignity in the workplace, citing the Pacquiao incident as a reminder of what can happen when power and wealth corrupt character. Psychologists and sociologists studied the case as a perfect example of how public humiliation can lead to genuine personal transformation. Chen and Manny eventually became unlikely friends. They met regularly for coffee, always at Sampaguita, where they discussed philanthropic projects and shared ideas on how to use their influence for good. Their friendship became a living testament that people can change, that forgiveness is possible, and that even the darkest moments can lead to light. Years later, when asked about that day, Manny would simply smile and say he hadn't done anything extraordinary, just defended someone who needed help. But for millions of people around the world, including Vincent Chen, that moment in the small Manila cafe had been truly extraordinary. It was proof that sometimes the greatest victories happen outside the ring, and that true power lies not in the ability to knock someone down, but in the wisdom to know when to extend a hand to lift them up. If you like this kind of story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next videos.